Danny continues towards Leeward Islands. I'm Mike Naso from IPR with the first video update of the 2015 Atlantic hurricane season on the first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season, Hurricane Danny, which you could see on the right-hand side of our screen here, is starting to make its way into view as it will continue towards the Leeward Islands of the Lesser Antilles over the next couple of days. Danny has been intensifying and is now a Category 2 hurricane. You can see it's very, very tiny but very well defined, but it has an uncertain future as to track and intensity, and we'll get into all of that. We also have an invest up here that we've been keeping an eye on just in case that does something, although as of right now it doesn't seem too likely just at this point in time. Here's the latest on Hurricane Danny as of 11 a.m., brand new advisory, hot off the presses. It was at 14.0 north, 48.2 west. Winds were up to 105 miles an hour, so it's getting up there. It's almost closing in on major hurricane intensity, gusting into the Category 3 range. This is all estimated, but it could even be stronger than that. It's moving west-northwest at 10, and this is expected to gradually turn more west over time. 976 millibars is the estimated pressure. And you can see the Hurricane Center's thinking is that it's going to maintain itself, maybe a little stronger, a little weaker, and then gradually weaken due to wind shear and dry air, although it has been pushing away the dry air the last, say, 6 to 10 hours, which has allowed for this quick strengthening. It shows how strong Danny would be, imagine, without the dry air. And the forecast does have it weakening to a tropical storm by the time it gets into the islands on Monday, Tuesday, Puerto Rico, Wednesday, Hispaniola. But remember, it could be much further to the south through the Caribbean or much further to the north towards the Bahamas. Forgive my clogged nose, by the way, a little summertime cold. And it not used to being back on. Haven't had a lot of hurricanes recently. However, this is the path that the general thinking right now, and the computer models are starting to trend a little more north. It could be because of the new models, because of the new strength of the hurricane, that Danny might want to take a little bit more northerly track. And the ensemble models from the GFS, you could see they're pretty tightly clustered, but then they kind of diverge, but not too much. We do have some trying to turn it out. One model does. All the others keep it moving west. Of course, when you get down in this range, it's very uncertain whether or not it would be turning or maybe going towards Cuba or going straight up into the middle towards the Bahamas. So there is a lot of variables at play here, how the dry air will affect this system, how the wind shear will affect it. If you look at the latest wind shear profile, you can see it's got a little bit of a safe harbor, but it is starting to flatten out a bit on the western side. It's got this jet from the tropical upper tropospheric trough, the TUT as they call it, although these levels here, 10 to 30 knots, believe it or not, they were even higher about 24 to 48 hours ago, so that's a little bit of good news as far as Danny would be concerned for development, that for its strengthening, it doesn't have to deal with quite as strong of shear as it looked like maybe a day ago, but still some shear. You can see very favorable conditions once you get past that zone, all the way up into the Bahamas, if it should go in that direction. And water temperatures, forget about it. I mean, the water temperatures this August, I mean, they only get progressively warmer. Right now, Danny's strengthening over these. These are the waters to be concerned with if Danny should pop out of the shear zone and head towards a more favorable area. But that's starting to get far out. As of right now, you can see the closer you get towards the southeast U.S. and the Bahamas, the hotter the waters get. Okay, now analyzing Danny. There's the RGB image, a very tiny hurricane, but as the sun came up, you can see the beautiful bubbling eye wall there. This is definitely a hurricane. This thing has had something that a lot of systems the last couple of years has not had. It's had a very well-defined inner core, and that's the only reason it's half as strong as it is. As a matter of fact, if it was larger, it probably would have sucked in more dry air and wouldn't be together. There is the shape of the hurricane, as you can see it, and you see these winds coming in view here. This is the wind shear, but backing off a little bit, we'll see if Danny puts up a little protective barrier against the shear here for as long as he can until he begins to feel the impact and weaken. There's a beautiful image. Look at that well-defined eye. That is a potent hurricane, very tiny but strengthening. You can see it curling up there, and the orange there, the dry air, you can see the moisture has started to expand with the hurricane, but the dry air in here is definitely going to play a role, more so than if it was a moist environment. There's the shear coming into view. So Danny is strengthening right now, and it could still strengthen and hold its own over the next 24 hours or so, followed by a weakening. The National Hurricane Center says down to a tropical storm. We'll see if we can get it down to that before the islands, which is quite possible. A very small system like this is susceptible to changes up and down very rapidly. So we will keep an eye on Hurricane Danny here, and we'll see what this system does. If you live in the Leeward Islands, Lesser Antilles, the U.S. Virgin Islands, keep a very close eye, because as of right now, you have a 105-mile-an-hour strengthening hurricane aiming right at you. Of course, there are variables coming into play to where it probably won't be that intense when it gets there, but you always have to prepare for one category stronger. So as of right now, be prepared for a major hurricane, because this ain't too far off, and weakening, while expected, is never a certainty. These small systems can really fool you. As we move out into the eastern and central Pacific, we have a tropical storm out there. You can see it's very large and well-defined south of Hawaii. Here is the latest is Tropical Storm Kilo. It was at 12.7 north, 151.7 west. Winds were only 40, but as you saw on that satellite, it's strengthening. It's moving west-northwest at 16, 1,004 millibars, expected to become a hurricane and then a Category 2, and curl back close to the island. So be careful there if you're in Hawaii. Keep an eye on this one. We have our other storm in the western Pacific. This is Typhoon Asani, which had been a super typhoon. It's been weakening somewhat down to 115 miles an hour. It's moving northwest at 10. That should avoid land. But we do have to deal with Typhoon Goni, which is a Category 2. A large, ragged, wet typhoon at 19.4 north, 122.3 east. Winds gusting to 130, is crawling north at 1 mile an hour, but it is expected to head towards Japan as a significant tropical cyclone. And when you look at the satellite image there of our two systems, you can see on the left there's Goni, and on the right there's our stronger typhoon. Very large, well-defined eye, although dry air is starting to break in. In fact, if you look closely, you can kind of see some breaks in the eye wall there, and then Goni is just raining like mad over the Philippines, as it will take a turn eventually after it stops this slow movement as a Category 2 cyclone towards Japan. So we're watching the tropics, and we'll keep an eye on our typhoons and our tropical storm south of Hawaii, and we will watch Hurricane Danny. I'm Mike Naso. I'll see you next time.